The Ford Maverick is going to be Ford's smallest and most inexpensive truck, but it's not out yet. But we do have some information on it, and we're going to talk about everything that you need to know about the Ford Maverick. First up, this is not going to be a body-on-frame truck. This is going to be a unibody truck. So this is based on the same platform as the Bronco Sport and the Ford Escape. So I've got the Bronco Sport up on screen right now, so you can kind of take a look at it. It's going to be around that size. It's going to be built in Hermosillo, Mexico, alongside the Bronco Sport. The platform is called the C2 platform, and we've got now, what are 3 vehicles that are going to be on it? Once again, the Escape, the Bronco Sport, and the upcoming Maverick. Now, if you really want to know how big it is, this image just popped up at Ford Authority. So this is next to a Ford Mustang. So the Ford Mustang is about 189 inches. And the Ranger, which is the current smallest truck at Ford, which has gotten a lot bigger than before, it's about 211 inches. But this sort of gives you a sense of exactly how big it is. The fact that the Maverick is parked behind the Mustang tells you something. It tells you that the Maverick is obviously a little bit bigger than the Mustang. So if the Ranger Super Crew is 210 inches, 211, we know that the Maverick is going to be smaller than that. Think something in between, probably the Mustang and the Ranger Super Crew. If we zoom in on the headlights, we can see that there's kind of a C-shaped headlight design going on there with some, looks like some individual elements below the top part, which is most likely an LED running light. I'm not sure if LEDs are actually cheaper to produce at this point than inexpensive halogens, so not exactly sure what we're gonna get here, but I'm thinking certainly the top running light is going to be LED. We can see obviously that the Maverick is a lot taller than the Mustang, and you can see how they sort of line up at the rear here too. So this is a pretty good shot, which sort of gives you a rough idea of how big this is likely to be. The Bronco Sport has a length of about 173 inches, so it's a fairly compact vehicle. With the bed in the Maverick, I think we're going to get, again, up to something that is longer than the Mustang, longer than the 188 inches, but shorter than the 211 inches of the current Ranger with the crew cab. So what kind of powertrain can we expect in this? So this is the same CD2, this is the same C2 platform as the Ford Escape. Remember, it's front-wheel drive based. So there's 2 engines, actually 3 that you can get on the Escape. So there's the base engine, which is a 1.5 liter, makes 181 horsepower, same engine found in the Bronco Sport. Then the upgrade is the 250 horsepower engine, the 2 liter, it's a 4-cylinder, 0 to 60 is around 5.7 seconds, and these all have an 8-speed automatic only. Now in the Bronco Sport, there's also a hybrid available. Actually, it's not quite available yet, but it should be available pretty soon. It's going to have a 14.4 kilowatt hour battery pack. It's a plug-in hybrid, and Ford estimates it's going to be able to go 37 miles on battery power alone. Just as a point of reference, I recently tested the RAV4 Prime, which is a plug-in hybrid. It went 40 miles. I got 40 miles on battery power alone. I think the battery pack in that is about 18.2 kilowatt hours. Now the Bronco Sport is not available in a hybrid yet. We just get the 2 powertrains, the 1.5 and the 2 liter. So there's sort of an open question as to whether the Ranger is going to get a hybrid configuration. There's rumors sort of going both ways. I don't really have a good source on this, so I can't confirm what kind of powertrain it's going to get. Ford is keeping this one a little bit closer to the vest. And my speculation is that it probably will be available as a hybrid because, well, there's a couple reasons. This is obviously a smaller pickup truck. It is going to be aimed for more city use, for more urban, less for hauling and doing long runs and so forth. So if it's more city and more urban, I think a plug-in hybrid actually is a strong possibility for it. Let's talk about the configurations that you can get. There's going to be a front-wheel drive version and an all-wheel drive version, and they're going to get different rear suspensions and a different rear subframe. So this is over from Ford Authority. This is somebody that obviously crawled up underneath the Maverick and took some photos of it. So what we're looking at here is the front-wheel drive version, and we can see it has a very inexpensive, very simple setup for the suspension. This looks to be a twist beam, torsion beam style rear setup. The bar goes from one side to the other, and it's not really a true independent rear suspension. We can see a coil spring here mounted on this torsion beam. We can see a shock, and that's pretty much it. So this is the front-wheel drive version. This is going to be the base version of the vehicle available, most likely with the 1.5 liter. Not sure if it's going to have the 2 liter. Now going higher up here on the photograph, same different image capture. So the all-wheel drive version has what looks to be an actual different subframe, so that Ford can mount a true independent rear suspension on this vehicle. So looking at the lower control arms here, you can see there is a protective plate, a skid plate, I guess you could call it, mounted on the lower control arm. You can see the top of the lower control arm here up inside the body, the subframe. Can't really see the differential here, so it's anyone's guess what that's likely to be, but probably the same out of the Bronco Sport. So this is a proper independent rear suspension setup. You can see the shock over here. You can see the coil spring is mounted on this lower control arm in this shot over here too. And as for the tires, at least in the all-wheel drive version, it looks like these are some probably all-season tires, not really super off-road rated. Ford Authority here has a really good comparison of the Bronco Sport rear suspension. You can see the Bronco Sport actually has an integrated tow hook into this cross member, and you can see the lower control arms here. So if we look at the Ford Maverick, the rear suspension looks quite similar actually. A different angle, you can see these skid plates that are bolted onto the lower control arm, and that tells you that this is going to be pretty off-road friendly. There's no reason to put skid plates on the lower control arms unless you're intending to go off-road. You can see the damper over here, and then you can see the spring mounted, what looks to be on the lower control arm itself. And you can see the subframe assembly here where the lower control arm, the top member, the top part of the lower control arm is mounted to the subframe. Looking at the styling, it's pretty much uncovered at this point. This tells you how close to production this really is. The wheels look to be straight off of the Bronco Sport, which is another clue that this is exactly the same platform. Looking at the lower grille, looks like these cutouts are in fact for tow hooks, so that makes it fairly functional. We have some headlights which have this very big C shape. Reminds me kind of the F-250, the Super Duty type trucks. Now in the middle of the C shape for the headlights, looks like we've got some turn signals in here too. I think that upper element is an LED running light. Looks like there's 3 individual elements below the headlight. I think those are some type of projectors. This is riding fairly high up, so I'm guessing that this is the all-wheel drive variation. And then in terms of the grille, this is the grille from the 2020 F-150, the STX. So I'm seeing this looks to be pretty similar. Here you can actually see on the spy photo that the top of the grille above that bar that goes across the middle of the grille looks to be like that's covered up there, and I think what's going on below is that there's actually air going in there too. So my guess is this is for aerodynamics, that it is the behind the grille is sort of covered up there. Lower down, below the bumper, you can see what look to be some heat exchangers there, perhaps for the intercooler, perhaps there is an oil cooler or a transmission cooler for towing. Let me know your guesses. So considering we're seeing these mules driving around and they look to be in pretty much final form, I think a reveal is fairly imminent at this point. It's supposed to go on sale, again, this is all rumor, it's supposed to be on sale as a 2022 model, which means it'll probably be available perhaps late in 2021, depending on availability of parts and chips and all that. The chip delays are affecting the entire industry, pretty much everyone except Toyota right now. So it's difficult to get chips. Things could be delayed again, But if it is going to be announced as a 2022 model, we should be seeing an introduction, a reveal sometime in the second quarter of this year. So in other words, from about now till the end of June, which would make sense. In terms of pricing, we don't really know. This is going to be purely speculative because Ford is not going to release the pricing. No insider is going to have access to the pricing information until we get like really, really close to the reveal. But there's some speculation that it is going to be below $20,000 for the entry-level model. That does sound quite inexpensive. It would probably be $19,995 if that's true. Now, Car and Driver is speculating there's only going to be 3 trim levels that we're going to get. Ford has made a huge commitment to EVs and electrification in general. There's the F-150 pickup truck, full electric, which is coming, probably going to be in 2022 as well. And so it makes sense for Ford to probably provide a plug-in option. This is, and the reasoning behind this is that the Bronco Sport doesn't have a plug-in option. It doesn't even have a hybrid option right now, but that is much more of a off-road centered vehicle, even though it is still very city-like, city-worthy, I guess you could call it. It does have some pretty serious off-road creds. And by the way, I'm getting a Bronco Sport to review in a couple of weeks, so let me know if there's something that you want to know about the Bronco Sport specifically. I'm getting the Mustang Mach-E too. I think it just makes sense that they would introduce a plug-in hybrid if they can, and they can get the parts, and they can get the batteries, and all that kind of good stuff. By the way, I haven't covered this yet, but there is a huge legal dispute going on regarding a battery manufacturer, LG, and an American manufacturer over some intellectual property regarding the batteries, and there's a plant that is going to start up in Georgia. They're asking the Biden administration to get involved, so I might cover that in a future episode. It's quite complicated, quite interesting, and it really could impact battery production for manufacturers like Ford and actually VW as well. Is the Maverick a pickup truck that you would consider buying? Let me know down below in the comments. My name is Eric, and I will see you in the next video.